Okay, amazing. So, yeah, welcome everyone. Today we're talking about data and AI enterprise strategy. And particularly now, we've had a few different talks with regard to AI agents and just how teams are scaling right now, with regard to Gen AI and stuff like that. Um, This is going to be really a deep dive talking to Divya Unnikrishnan, and she's first of all a thought leader in this space and works in enterprise strategy. So this talk is going to be about how we can apply these things in an enterprise setting, and ultimately what makes the adoption of AI at that scale successful. So thank you so much for joining us today, Divya. I'm going to have you just quickly introduce yourself and, feel free to share anything about your background that you want to share.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Irene, and thank you for inviting me for this WAI talks. It's a great, immense opportunity for me. So, just to sort of touch base on my background, right? I have been in the space for around 2 decades right now, and worked. I started my career as a data scientist, and then sort of moved up, being an AI strategist and AI consulting. Worked across companies like Accenture, Capgemini, and now currently based out of Dubai. And currently, I'm like a co-founder of an organization called Unikin.ai. We are basically trying to solve, problems in the online space, in the marketplaces for D2C brands, right, using AI. So that's what we are trying to help our D2C clients and brands, scale up their online business. But prior to that, yes, worked with a lot of financial services organizations, retail, oil and gas, telecom. So worked across variety of industries and helping them solve their, AI journey, AI implementation, creating those AI use cases. So yeah, glad to be part of this conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the buzzwords, right? I mean, we keep hearing about how everyone wants to be AI powered now. So like functionally, what does that actually mean to you when you're building enterprise at scale?
Yeah. Good question. I think the past 2 years, once generative AI has been coming in, I think all most of the organizations now wants to get into that AI bandwagon, right? But what they don't realize is there are few things which has to be considered.
Mm.
Starting with, first of all, AI is not just an experiment. What we started out, data science and AI is just not an experiment. When you need to sort of scale up across an enterprise, it has to be a strategic priority. And what do I mean by that? It has to be aligned to the business objectives, right? Right from your business KPIs. And usually we look at 3 to 4 KPIs, which are around, is it been contributing to the revenue growth?
Mhm.
Is it helping in the cost reduction? Is it helping in the customer satisfaction? Or it helps in risk mitigation, right? So these are the KPIs which, when you're sort of looking at scaling up AI across the enterprise, this has to be aligned to these business objectives and KPIs. Then, secondly, yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. Then I would say that, basically look at, is the organization ready for this adoption of AI, right? And it's not in silos. Are the people ready, right? Is the technology able to support this? Do you have your data in the cloud? Do you have it, organized? It's not in silos. Do you have that enterprise layer of technology supporting you? Then is the data managed, is the data governed, is that governance structure in place? And the people, right? Are people ready to take it? Are they aware of what is, the changes that's going to happen? So these are some of the factors which has to be considered before we sort of roll out AI at an enterprise level, from the people perspective, data, the technology perspective.
And is the first step, like when you are working with clients, and they're, starting out in this process, I would imagine like an inventory of these things is like the first step, right? Can you speak a little bit to that of how you get them ready?
Yeah, sure. So I would take a very recent example. We were working with one of the wealth management organizations based out of here, UAE. So what is the first step is we usually start, first we need to define that AI strategy, right? And that's where we start with an assessment. We understand what is, the current state in the organization. Where are they in these levers? We try to understand that. Then we go into understand what is the target state, where are they going to, what do they want to achieve, right? That's where we capture some of those inputs in terms of what are the KPIs they want to achieve, or do they see some challenges within their functions? Okay, is there probably the customer satisfaction score is less, or they're trying to get in more new clients, so we try to sort of map that out, and then we try to see what are the use cases from each of the business functions. And that's where we go a little more deeper into, what is the problem we are trying to achieve and how can AI solve it? Because only when we have alignment with the business is when this AI can be successful, to implement in any organization. And finally, we sort of, once we get the list of use cases, we sort of prioritize them. And there are two, three factors which we look at in terms of the technical feasibility, in terms of, is the use case, can it be implemented? Then we look at in terms of the complexity of the use case. Is it aligned to the business? Is there a value if we implement that? And then finally, we go about creating that roadmap, and that roadmap, you should start with at least 3 to 4 weeks. First start small. I think I've read this one of these books, and there's a good line which has come is, think big, start small and scale quickly. So that is the mantra I would say you need to sort of, when you start implementing these use cases across the organization.
And for you, we say AI kind of as a blanket statement. So does that mean traditional ML models? Does it mean, Gen AI wrappers? Like yeah, what exactly do we mean when we say AI?
Good question. I think most of the organizations also grappling with that, okay? Because people sort of try to put in everything under the AI bucket. They do not know what is it. So when I talk about AI, yes, there are these multiple layers. I think everything comes under that AI umbrella, So if you think of AI as a big, I would say a sort of a circle, you have those machine learning models. Yes, that's also part of AI. You have your generative AI, which is probably a subset of the complete AI model. Then you have your deep learning models and everything, right? So everything comes under that AI bucket because, initially, probably a decade ago, right? What was AI? We just started with building those predictive models, optimization models, recommendation models, but they were also actually AI, right? And then you sort of, that AI sort of that terminology or whatever was phrased and everything sort of fitted under that, right? So when I talk about AI, yes, it includes everything, right? From ML, includes your, generative AI as such. So everything includes in that bucket. So, when we are talking to our clients also, we sort of basically give them that awareness and that education on what it is and what entails that when we talk what is AI. So yes.
I mean, is there a big difference in terms of, when you're working with generative models? Like, uh, obviously, when you're working with traditional ML models, like the data is really important. So is that equally true when you're dealing with LLM based products or applications?
Yes, I think definitely. So, see, LLM models, again, there are two, three different ways of doing it, right? One is you sort of just use what is there of the industry, like your ChatGPT, OpenAI, or whatever these organizations provide, but then you don't have the control of the data because this data is trained across the internet or across the whatever outside outside scope of things, right? So you don't have a control. Now, another way is you put in your company data, right? Your organization data, and then try to train that LLM model. So there you have more control on the data, right?
Right.
But again, then there are other complexities in terms of, your infrastructure needs and everything. So
Right.
that's another. And the third is basically you build your own LLM model,
Mm-hmm.
right? You use from the beginning, from scratch, you build your own LLM. But again, there are constraints of your technology, your infrastructure, and everything. But that is, you have the complete control of your data. You're training it and you're using that, right? So these are the three various types organizations usually use, and but it also depends based on the organization's capability, what is their needs. You have to take a decision.
Mm-hmm.
You sort of use, we say basically buy, build, and sorry, I forgot the third one. Buy, build, and sorry, I forgot the third one. So these are the three categories, and then yeah, so it
Yeah.
depends on where the organization boost, yeah, buy, build, and boost. So
What is
that, yeah,
boost?
boost is when you're sort of retraining with your own company data, right?
Oh, okay, okay. Mm-hmm. Got it.
Buy is you're buying the off the shelf, build is you're building from scratch, and
Okay.
boost is when you're retraining with your company data.
So, we talk about use cases that are enterprise ready, right? So, and we talked a little bit about, what happens when teams try to scale prematurely. So, what are some of those red flags that you see when they do that? When they try to scale prematurely?
Yes. So from my experience also, uh, working with few of the organizations, we start with a whole list of use cases, we start building them, and then some of them just don't go into the production, some of them just fail. So some of the areas I think we need to take care is, one is it, as I also mentioned, right? It has to be aligned to your business priority. Okay. Otherwise, just you are part of a data science team, AI team, you just work in silos, you just, you feel okay, this is a good use case to implement in that organization, but then there's no business sponsorship or no business champions, then it
Mm-hmm.
never goes into the production. People are not using it, people are not adopting it. So that is one red flag. If you feel that your use case is not supported by the business, there's no business champions, then definitely that's one of the red flags. Second is, I would say, if you're talking about the, basically just about the accuracy of the model, you're just talking about model KPIs, and you're not, again, relating it back to your business KPIs, right? That is a red flag. Because again, there's no point talking about model. Yes, your model is performing well, but that's not the end of it, right? People have to adopt it, people have to use it. It has to increase the top line. So I keep
Yeah.
stressing on this fact because we have seen a lot of cases in some of the organizations where, people come to us and just say, yeah, just build this model. I want to see if customer churn model, just build. I want to see that we build it and all, but people are not using it. Then what is the point, right? You have to get that insights from that. So then there is no point in implementing that.
Yeah, and that kind of hits on an interesting development in a way, because it's like, why are they devoting resources to something that they're not aligning with business goals or business processes, or it's like, it seems like a waste of money to me, right? A waste of not only the salary of the people that are working on these things, which are not, low salaries, but also, you're storing that data, you're retraining these models, it's a cost for every time you do that, right? So that's what I get confused about when I hear, that companies are, like these projects are failing. I mean, I used to hear that all the time before, right? Like 80% of ML projects were failing because,
Yes.
we were in this experimental phase. But it seems like now the businesses are much more, I don't know what to call it. I guess stringent on, how they're spending money, and maybe they're not so experimental anymore. Now they want to see sure gains from these applications. So can you talk a little bit about that tension, because I think this is happening at a lot of businesses.
Interestingly, I was just reading a report from McKinsey, right? It
Mhm.
says that, and it's just probably last month, yeah, May 2025 report. it says that 78% of the organizations actually are implementing AI in their business functions, right? But 80% of them do not see that value coming out. So it is still, there is a gap still, right? And this is a very recent, just a month old report. So 80% of organizations still are not able to sort of, see their top line, sales or whatever happening because of that AI implementation.
Yeah.
So definitely, I think the what is the use case being selected is a big problem here. Okay. So and and that's where I think people from all the teams need to sit together. When you're looking at implementing AI in any enterprise, you need people from the business function, you need people from the data and AI teams, you need people from technology to see if the technology infrastructure is able to support it. You need people from risk and compliance, specifically when I've been working with banking and financial services. You need that aspect. You need that, because risk plays a huge part in when you sort of create any sort of AI models for a banking service, right?
Right.
And you need also HR people, right? Because this has to be a change management, right? People, that communication, that training, everything has to be aligned. So
Mhm.
I think everyone has to sit together, and then sort of that, when you're defining your strategy and defining the use cases, everyone has to sit together and get that complete sign off from everyone, right?
Yeah.
And then I think you need to start implementing. Otherwise, always there'll be these conflicts, and yeah, it'll not
Yeah.
work.
Because it's one thing, it's one thing to have like a technical debt issue. It's another thing to have a performance issue. It's another thing, oh, like this isn't doing what we thought it would do, right? But when I hear that it's not aligned properly to the business needs, right? To me, that tells me that's an issue with their product management, right? Because again, it's like, why are you devoting so many resources and then missing that part where it is being, it's baked into the needs of that business? Like, do you see it as a product management issue? Like they're not aligning, they're not creating enough alignment within that org?
I would not completely say it's a product management issue. Um, Again, I would say, again, it's from it. I would say it's top down and bottom up, right?
Yeah.
Probably the executive sponsorship, they are not aligned, okay, or there is a gap somewhere.
Right.
And also, I've realized that some of these organizations I've worked with, okay, because everyone is talking about AI bandwagon, they have created these silos in each of these departments, right? Because they feel their department, the marketing team feels, oh, my team needs more importance. So let me start building within my team. Whereas the supply chain, okay, when you talk about a manufacturing organization, supply chain team think, no, no, I need more AI. So they start creating these silos. So sometimes I see there's a lot of duplication of efforts also. So that could also be one of the reason, right? So
Yeah.
that is why I think in the past 1 or 2 years, this was the case probably many years back, but the past 1 or 2 years, they've realized we need to have that strategy in place. That's why this AI strategy is picked up, because
And
that's when we get
centralized.
everyone together. Yeah. And get everyone together and align it as an organization and not have these silos.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Now, how do you evaluate when an AI pilot is actually worth expanding into production? Like, as you're working with clients, what gives you that confidence?
Yeah. So, yeah, the approach or framework I usually use is I go with a 4V approach about what I say: the value, the visibility, the viability, and the velocity. So value is generally, as I said before, what we have spoken in terms of what is the business value. Is it, KPIs measuring to your top line growth, right? That is the value. Visibility is in terms of, again, is it, from the business sponsorship, is it visible? Is that pilot, does it really solve a problem? So that's visible. Then viable is, again, is it technically viable? Can we implement that pilot into production? Do we have the data? Do you have real-time data coming in? Do you have those, ML ops workflows created? Can it be put into production? Can it be, is the adoption layer, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, that is so, yeah, so viable, visibility. And finally, velocity. How quickly can we scale it up, right? In terms of putting into production. Again, are the pipelines in place? So when we create a pilot, yes, these are some of the things we definitely see. And there's a there is an interesting thing. I think once we create these pilots, there can be a go no go, right? And that as an no go means it probably that is delayed, right? That pilot can be delayed till we have everything in place. We should not just go and implement into production, because then there is just, it's again a waste of time, effort, and everything. So if you feel that these four things are not aligned, then I think we should hold back and not go into production, and probably have something else go into production. So that is that's that at that point we need to make that decision, definitely.
Now, we touched on this a little bit, but cross-functional alignment, right? Because when we talk about AI initiatives, obviously it's a lot of different groups all working together. And we talked a little bit about, I don't know if I want to say a selfishness, because if I think about a company, a large company, an enterprise company, right? What we would consider enterprise level, that's a lot of competing priorities. So the challenge of leadership is, what should we prioritize? Because everybody wants to be first, right? Like, they're all worried about their work, their job, their significance within the greater structure. But obviously with AI, it does require a lot of teams to work together, and it does require some humility, because you have to put the needs of the organization before your own personal needs and before the needs of your own department, right? So can we talk a little bit more about, like, what are some of those blockers when it comes to cross-functional alignment? And you don't have to use my words. I tend to say it very simply, because to me it is a type of selfishness, and it's a selfishness that I think most corporate structures incentivize, which is unfortunate. So yeah, I'm curious how you would phrase it, and yeah, what you would think are the main blockers there.
It's a very practical problem which we have seen in most of the organization, right? When it comes to prioritizing, everyone wants their use case, right? So that is why we have this. So when I sort of work with enterprises, we clearly have this laid out. As I said, the complexity versus feasibility, and we look at certain factors and we give a score, and finally based on that we create sort of a matrix. We say quick wins versus long term initiatives, versus if some of those doesn't make sense, right? So we categorize them into these categories, and then that's one more point, is that's where we need someone, from probably from the executive level, right, who is not biased to any departments, who's sitting at the top, but he knows all the departments, and he knows what is important, what is not, and he or she will be able to help us and guide us in exactly saying which would be the right one, right? We need that sponsorship, because if we speak to all the business function heads, yes, they would say yes, ours is more on priority, and this is a very common problem. I've always faced this. So when we go as data scientists or AI experts, again, we don't know whom to cater to, right? We do this metrics and all, but still there might be some conflict. So usually
Yeah.
we do this in a workshop. We sit together and do it. We have some representatives from each of the function, and we sit and do it. But the final decision maker, I would say, has to come from the executive level, or if they have some, data and AI, there's a team there, some executive leader there, from someone from on the top, right? Who will be able to say, yes, this is final, we are going ahead with it.
Right. Right. Are there any other blockers that you've noticed?
Blockers, yes, I would say some of this again, when we don't know, the success is not defined, right? What according to it, when that's not clear, there's the alignment between what is the objectives between the data science team and the business team and the other teams. There's always that misalignment when the success, what are we trying to achieve? That's not clear, because I've seen in situations we have implemented certain, for example, in insurance company where we have sort of went and implemented some risk assessment models and all, but finally they are not sure, you're right, what to do with it. Then that's where and they don't know how to interpret it, so that's where there's a misalignment between objectives. And then in terms of some cases we have seen that um, there's no adoption as such, right? Then what is the point of doing and putting in that effort, right? So that's where the change management, which I spoke about earlier, the training, everything has to come into play.
Yeah.
That is another, and also one another factor is low literacy, I would say. People are aware what is AI, but they don't know the specifics, right? And they feel, okay, AI is just a yes no type. They don't. But AI is more, it is more deterministic, right? Sorry, it's not deterministic, it's more probabilistic. So they should understand that AI also has some limitations, right? So getting that awareness is also critical. So these are some of the blockers I've seen when I have sort of implemented AI across organizations. And I think it's our responsibility as AI experts to sort of create that awareness, educate them, in the beginning itself, and tell them clearly what can AI do, what cannot AI, what AI can't do. Speak to them about the responsible, AI part, in terms of bias, fairness, so that you ensure that everything is in line, because later on we should not get into any sort of problems, right? So yeah, these are some of the blockers, and yeah, I think.
Yeah, I've definitely, I think that is a big point, actually, this idea that they're not managing their own expectations in terms of what they can reasonably expect from probabilistic models, right? And then I think then it tends to be polarizing, because you might have one camp of people that are, their dreams of like the silver bullet being shattered, and then they're like, oh, I guess AI is dumb, and then it's like, well, that's not productive, that's now, those unfair expectations not only result in, having these overblown expectations of what is possible with AI, but then you kind of lose what actually is possible and valuable about it, because you're not, aligning with that.
True,
Um,
very true.
Now, when it comes to like defining data, and also the roadmaps themselves, who needs to be at the table for that? Because and it's not just you. A lot of speakers, that when we do the events like this recurring theme comes up of these initiatives need to be centralized, because they are all encompassing, even if the use case is just for one department, right? Like the data model itself, the data strategy itself needs to align with the needs of whatever AI systems you're creating. So, yeah, can you talk a little bit about that? Like who needs to be brought in early, in those early conversations, and what's often missing from those early conversations?
Yeah, so I would say yes, exactly. I would say we need people representation from each of these businesses, right? So that's when we start talking about strategy. We need sponsors from the business, the departments. We need that. Then we need from the probably the risk and compliance, the HR teams, at least the first few sessions, right? So that's where we sort of get them, everyone aligned on what we are trying to achieve, and also from the technology team, as you rightly said, right? Data, right? We are just not doing for one department, right? When we are sort of building the complete pipeline and everything, we ensure that. And if you're trying to build an AI model, for example, for a retail client, you look at the customer data, you look at the product data, you look at the complete customer 360, right? So you need data from different departments. You're looking at probably social media data. So it's not just, just one sort of data. You're looking at across the data, it's just not in silos. So that's when, and also we have to make sure that, everyone is able to use it. There's a value for everyone. So, right, that's the reason we try to get in everyone. And we have also noticed that sometimes when we talk about use cases for one department, it helps the other departments also in some other way. We have
Mm-hmm.
seen that. So it
Yeah.
is always, and we have it always helps basically getting everyone on the same page. So we would need the business, the different representatives from different functions. We need the technology IT layer, and again IT department, and they play a critical role, right? They have been they know the infrastructure in place, they know the technology in place, so we need those representatives. And also if you're looking at getting procuring some platform or procuring some technology, we are partnering with some organization, so that's where this IT team, technology team has to be aligned. Then the risk and compliance team, as I said, and then the probably change management. That's what I've been always stressing about, right? So that's where probably the HR team also has to get involved, just getting the cultural change within that organization. So yeah, these would be the folks I would say to, start with, have those conversations.
Yeah, and I mean, change management is hard. Like it creates a lot of skepticism, a lot of resistance, and even, I'm not going to say literacy is the only reason for that, right? It may be because they're threatened about their job,
Yeah.
oh,
Yes.
changing, or even, I mean, not that I want to stir, that camp of like, oh, AI is going to take your job, but it'll probably amend your job. There'll be aspects where you may have to work with a chatbot or a knowledge base or predictive modeling or whatever, whatever it might be in the actual workflow. So yeah, how do you navigate like that skepticism, that resistance that comes up within like traditional business functions?
See, one way is having a champion, right? From the business itself, having a champion. And it's our duty sort of to explain them what are we trying to achieve, and basically explaining what this model is doing, right? What is the what's happening in the background, right? And sort of getting them onboarded, and then the champions can sort of advocate it within the broader teams within their organization, right? Because they are convinced and it's easier to convince others, right? And
Mhm.
yes, this has always been, there's a lot of resistance, right? People and I would say that, see, skepticism is basically, they're not indifferent, right? They're not basically convinced, they don't understand it, right? So as AI thought leaders and AI leaders who have worked in this space, it's our duties to sort of explain to them from the beginning. And one thing which has worked, I've seen, is having whatever a champion right from the beginning, right from when you're trying to strategize and build the use case, have them onboarded, explain the process, and then keep giving them these updates, right? Whenever we are, because it takes some time to implement, and then also ensure that there's that explainability layer, right? So that they understand what is happening in the background and they are able to advocate that. So that's how I feel they understand that yes, AI can be used as a partner, right? It's not just everything is going to be taken away. There are some things which if an AI throws a result, I should have that skill to understand if that is right or wrong, right? So that's where that human aspect comes in the loop, and nowadays everything we have human in the loop, right? So that is where I think that's one of the areas. And I see just some question on the chat as well, right?
Yeah, and just before we get to that, I was just going to make a comment that, like, obviously it depends on the strategy your company is also taking, right? There are companies who are very vocal about we are using AI so that we don't hire human people, right? So in that case, I would say it's not just about educating; it's also about having a strategy in good faith, right? Because it's one thing to say, "Hey guys, we're doing this. We want you on board. This is going to make your job easier so that you can focus on other things." And that is not our goal. Our goal is not to limit the workforce because of AI, right? So it's up to the leadership. Like, what is your message? Is your message to indeed minimize your workforce because you want to save money, and this is a cost-cutting measure that you short-sightedly think will save you money in the end? Or is it something where you do want to implement AI and you don't want to lose people? And can you actually
Yes.
communicate that? Because I also won't say that the skepticism only comes because people are not aware or whatever. I think the skepticism is definitely rooted in reality for many companies because they're not operating with integrity. I would not say, I mean, I don't know. Like you can tell me, how it is with the clients you work with, if you see it more one way or the other.
Um, yeah, but I think it's a very valid point you raised, Irene. Yeah, right. I think the way it has to be communicated, right? What are they looking for, right? If that intention is to sort of, reduce the workforce or whatever, for whatever reason, why are they doing it? That messaging has to be clear, right? Why are they going to sort of implement AI across the organization? What is the need? That why has to come about. And yeah, for example, one of the clients again, which where I was working in their focus was, yes, we need to be a digital organization, and for that we have to start this journey, right? And especially this is an insurance organization, which I'm talking, one of the US based property and casualty insurance based organization. And insurance company has always been, you understand, a lot of unstructured documents, right? You need to fill out those forms, and then there is so much of complexity. And insurance is something, when you, as a customer, right, when you're in times of need, is when you reach out to that insurance player, right? And imagine if that experience is not good as a customer, right? You
Right.
lose faith in that insurance company. So that's when that organization really felt that that's when they need to be a digital first organization.
Mhm,
The
mhm.
customers, they should really feel that, yes, at that time of the need, that organization, that company was there, right, for the customers. So when they were clear on that, that's how they sort of integrated AI into their complete enterprise sort of strategy and everything. And they have slowly moved. It takes time, probably 2 years, 3 years, but they've done it in stages, and now they are. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, it has to come from the top.
And yes, we do have a question. What use cases have delivered the most successful results? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So use cases, what I have seen is probably, we say, some of those quick wins. Okay. What I have seen is mostly in marketing, in terms of personalization of campaigns, and because it's easy to sort of track them, the results, and content generation, and using Gen AI, we have seen a lot of improvement, especially in the marketing team. That's one area I know has definitely delivered a lot of successful results. And from a financial banking scenario, I would say it has always been the, fraud detection, right? How do you sort of reduce the number of is AI is able to detect fraud scenarios early on, right? And so that we have seen some good successful results. So marketing, and anything to do with the customer experience, right? At the That's like the final thing. Probably customer service, agents, because when agents are able to especially in a banking industry, customer calls, whatever, that's when as agents, they are able to use the generative AI for their own good, and that, they're able to resolve the issues faster. That also we have seen a lot of good traction. So these are some of the areas I have seen, it's played a good big role.
Now, we talked about the data side of it. We said, okay, in some cases, like if your data is siloed, right? Now, because I think for many companies it is, like unless they have some initiative where they're centralizing or moving databases or updating their stack somehow, right? That instigates this. So yeah, how do you approach building data foundations when an organization still has a fragmented or legacy stack?
Yeah. And that is why you need to have the data strategy before an AI strategy. And
Mm,
being in the consulting organization, that's what we have always been telling our clients, right?
yep.
It's good to start with an AI strategy, but ensure that your data foundation is in place. Because without data, what you get out of the data, what the insights you get does not make sense, right? So I think data strategy is the key, data foundation is the key, and have that data governed, managed, accessed, available. Because as data scientists, yes, you create a big strategy. You'll say, go, let's start with building the use cases. And then when you actually get down and see that there's not enough data, or data is, it takes again 2 to 3 weeks to get that data, then all your plans are, completely gone off track, right? So getting that data in shape. And also, again, some of the banks, we've noticed that most of them are in the legacy platform, right? So
Yeah.
then they are like, okay, what do we do now? What is the approach? So what usually we sort of tell it, let's take a very hybrid approach, right? We can have some data, like one of the central banks in UAE. What we were trying to do is, they started on this data modernization journey, getting a cloud-based data enterprise, data layer, and all that. But in parallel, we are also developing some of the use cases, so that you know that because getting that data modernization journey will definitely take at least a couple of years, and the
I was gonna
business needs
say
that.
exactly, because like it takes
Yeah.
so long to do this, right?
Yes.
And
So they can't
sometimes
just sit and wait. Yeah.
and I like the hybrid approach because in that case you also can absorb like data needs that come up when you're actually under there, working on something, actually building the use case, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, we need more, we need to go one layer, deeper in terms of data granularity, or, oh wait, we're calling this the wrong thing and we should be categorizing it different, or whatever it might be, right? So like those little things are actually what come up when you're actually working on a project or a pilot. And it's hard to really see that and absorb that and capture that, at the beginning before you even roll your sleeves up, so to speak, right?
True. And also the another factor which actually works is, having the technology partnerships, when you work with organizations, probably like a Snowflake or anything, have those partnership built up, then it's more easier, right? Because they have the platform, everything in place. You just have to sort of partner with them and build it. So we have seen then that that adoption, or that is a bit more faster,
Yep.
and the implementation is a bit more faster. So some of these, yeah, these are the strategies which sort of you need to work alongside, so that nothing is stalled, and then the business doesn't come and say, oh, what's the progress? I don't see anything coming out of it. So yeah, so
Yeah.
these are some ways to sort of tackle it.
And then because you're working, I'm sure every client is different, and every, environment is different. Like is there any moment or any like project that stands out to you as far as like the real impact of a data initiative? Maybe something that surprised you?
Yes, so this happened probably a few years back. Yes, I was working with a client, a retail client, and we were looking at the customer churn. Okay, they came and said, yes, we would like to sort of predict the customers who will churn. We built this segmentation churn model, and it was around, yeah, 85%, 90% accuracy.
Mhm.
And then the marketing team was like, yes, come on, this is really bad. Let's send out some emails. Let's send out some loyalty offers, cashback offers. But then, interestingly, we also had a discussion with from the customer service team, right? But they said, wait, let's do one thing. Let's actually call up some of these customers and find out why are they planning to leave, or do they have that thought, right? We can have that conversation. And they sort of got in touch with few of them, and we found out that some of them were actually not leaving because some other client. Sorry, this is not a retail client. This is a banking client. So they're not leaving because of some other banks were providing them better rates or whatever. They felt there was less engagement between the bank and the customer, and they were not able to understand, or their issues were not resolved. So then we actually figured out, yes, this is a problem more with the customer service teams, and getting that engagement with the customer. So I found it very interesting because the data gave us some story. Yes, some of this is happening, But then we also had that human layer and actually going and finding out what was the reason. So that's where I felt both, where the human AI collaboration actually helped solve this issue. And yeah, finally they could basically get down the churn rate within the next quarter or something. They got it down significantly.
So they were saying that the customers were saying that they felt like their issues were not being resolved. Like the AI use case was just, you know, doing what like medium AI use cases do, which is give you something sort of
Yeah,
that you can go off of, but not fully getting to the issue.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And and there's so many things. I think they were not getting that engagement from within the bank, right? And basically also they were not able to understand some fees, and a lot of, they had some issues which was not getting resolved, and they were not able to understand. So that's where there was a gap, and people, that's why they were thinking of, and the way we identified they were going to churn is, yes, their transactions on the card was reduced, their logins to the app was reduced, everything we saw some reduction. So that was some of the
Mhm.
factors based on what we sort of figured that out.
Now, yeah, I'm curious if there are I guess any books or mentors that shape your approach to data leadership. Like this is a question I get all the time, so I'm just curious if anybody jumps out at you.
I would say currently I'm actually reading a good book called The AI Survival Guide. It's by Sol Rashidi, and a very practical approach of implementing AI, how she has done, and I could relate it a lot, and very good framework. So in case if someone is looking out, a very practical book, I would suggest this.
Hmm.
Then definitely the books I've read is Thomas Davenport, The Competing on Analytics. I think that has been there for some time, and I think if you can also sort of, it's a very good book, basically giving complete the end to end on how this can be, how do you sort of implement AI across enterprises and various other things he's covered. So yeah, top of my mind, these are some of the books which, if you're planning to start on this journey or whatever, it's good to pick up these books, and it'll lot of information in these books.
And then just one last question, which you know, may be helpful for anybody that may be your prospective client. Um, what is one thing you wish more execs understood about data and AI? We've talked so much about that executive leadership and sponsorship. So yeah, what is one thing that if they knew or understood about data and AI would make your job easier when you start working with them?
Yeah, so this is, see, as when this generative AI started, right? So everyone wanted to get into that bandwagon. So that's one thing I wish the executives at least understood, that not everything can be solved with generative AI, right? Some of the problems can be solved with just simple ML models, which is
Yeah,
also AI,
yeah,
right?
right.
You don't need a generative AI, you don't need LLM models, right? That, I think that awareness is very critical, because they're like, oh, we want to implement Gen AI within our organization, and I'm like, no, some of these and some of the use cases are simple ML models, right? And which doesn't need so much of infra, so much of effort, nothing. So I think, yeah, this is where I feel it's something which it's better if they understand that.
And it's echoed in a lot of the literature. I mean, when I see research, like as I was writing, because I wrote the second edition of my book, like it was published in December of 24. So one of the things I had a chapter about research. What is the research saying? And the biggest difference for me was, by the time the second edition came around, and I was reading those McKinsey papers, and it's like in the iteration for the first edition there was a lot of complexity and talking about different areas of AI as different concentrations. And then by the time the second edition came out and I had to update that chapter, it's like all of the reports were just like Gen AI, Gen AI, Gen AI, Gen AI, so it's like it's weird because if I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wait, for a company, yeah, Gen AI, okay, your knowledge base and your chatbot, I don't know, other customer facing stuff maybe, but like it doesn't seem like the biggest thing to me. Like, to me, if you're a business and you have workflows and you're trying to optimize, then like traditional ML models are probably more equipped to handle those like little micro services and little things that AI is helping like move the needle. And I'm talking throughout a workflow, throughout a whole journey. So I just found that to be a little bit I guess, I don't know, misleading, because so many people are reading these research papers and getting ideas. So in a way, you can't even blame these people for thinking, "Oh, Gen AI can solve all my problems," because that's what
Exactly.
McKinsey said. So yeah, it's interesting that now, as soon as you hear AI, in my mind too, I'm like, "Oh, they're talking about Gen AI probably." They're not talking about a linear regression model.
That's where, and that's where, when I started my journey, I used to build linear regression, logistic regression models, right? That was, and people never knew that, but that is, initially customer segmentation models and was there, so
Right.
people just think AI just evolved, yes, this 2 3 years back, that's it. But I go and tell them, no, I have done it in the past, right? That was also AI.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so then, so yeah, it's funny, but I think that mindset has to sort of change.
And I guess just building on that a little bit, do you feel like there's a big difference in terms of like when you're thinking about, okay, let's talk about your underlying data and your data foundation. I guess how much does it change depending on, is the use case Gen AI or is it other statistical models? Do you feel a difference, or are you looking at it as like we're changing the foundation of this data layer and it will be in service to any modeling that a company's thinking about doing?
Yes. See, again, it depends on the priority of the, what the organization is looking at, right? So if they are willing, we definitely explain to them, right? Gen AI, there is now, yeah, it is a bit more easier now, but we always think long term. And I think when you think long term, definitely, I think you need to keep into mind generative AI also, right? So again, they want at least one use case, which is generative AI. So you can't deny that fact. So definitely, I sort of, when we speak to our customers, we ensure that at least whatever we build caters to both, right?
Mhm.
Because we can't leave generative AI behind. Implementing traditional ML was much more easier, but we also ensure that that whatever we're building is capable of hosting a generative AI in the future, because we need to
Yeah.
think long term, definitely.
I mean, I think that's the resounding message of this talk. We need to think long term. Um, and we need to think collectively too,
Yes, yes.
it's one thing I hope many businesses take out of these discussions and these little trial periods that they're having. So time will tell, I guess.
Yeah, it's a journey. Yes, let's see. But a lot has actually, but the way it is increased in the last few years is tremendous.
Yeah.
So, and at least people are able to take notice and they understand. So it's just in terms of implementation. And hopefully by end of 2025, we see that people are much more they're able to implement, because I want that numbers to change, at least what I said from that McKinsey report, right? 80%, they still feel that there's no value to the business. So hopefully by end of 2025 and early 2026, at least that number changes and people are able to sort of actually see that value which is affecting their top line growth. That's what, as AI experts, we really want, right?
Yeah.
So that, let's hope for the best. Yeah.
Oh, and before I let you go, we do have one more question. What are current challenges with bridging ontology models with ETL pipelines to support AI workflows? Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah. Ontology models, again, I may not be the right person to sort of completely sort of talk about it, but with the ETL pipelines, I have probably experienced one or two. Yes, a lot of challenges in terms of how do we integrate it and how do we sort of implement it. But yeah, I may not be the right person, Debbie. So probably I can probably look around and come back to you on this question.
Awesome. Well, On that note, thank you so much, Divya, for making some time for us today. This is a very, very timely discussion, and yeah, there's a lot of confusion out there, but it seems like slowly but surely we are landing on some at least underlying agreements that companies can keep in mind when they're scaling. So I really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you, Irene. It was really wonderful sort of talking in this session, and happy to be associated with women in AI as well.
Of course, and thank you for all the wonderful work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Bye,
Yeah, see
everyone.
you. Bye.